Masechet Zevaḥim Daf Samech Vav. We begin the seventh perek. Mishnah. Hatat ta'of she'asa'ah lemata kema'aseh hatat l'shem hatat keshera. We begin with a simple case where the kohen does everything correctly. You have a bird that's a korban hatat, and he offers it below the red line. That's the right place where it's supposed to be. And he does the procedure as it's supposed to be for a chatat, and he has in mind, intention, that it will be a korban chatat. He does everything right. Obviously, this is keshera. This is just a setup so that we can look at the next cases where it gets more complicated. What if, again, it's designated as a korban chatat, a bird? Kemase hatat l'shem olah. Kemase olah l'shem hatat. Kemase olah l'shem olah pesula. Any of the following combinations, the korban is invalid. He does the action as a korban hatat. The Gemara is going to discuss which action are we talking about. Is it the milika that he does as a chatat, or is it the sprinkling of the blood that he does as a chatat? And here when it says kemase olah, which one is he deviating from? Is it the milika or the squeezing of the blood? Those are the two main actions for a bird. So we'll discuss that, but we'll leave it open for now. So if he does the procedure correctly as a korban chatat, but has in mind it will be an olah, that we know is pasul from all the way in the beginning of the masechet. We said that any chatat offering that you have the wrong intention, that will make it pasul. So that's true for animals, true for a bird as well. And also, if he does the act, even though he has l'shem hatat, that's correct, but the action that he does, he treats it like a korban olah during the procedure, or both. It's supposed to be a hatat ta'of, and he does the procedure as an olah, having in mind it's an olah. In all these cases, pesula. Asa lema'ala kema'aseh kulan pesula. Also the place. If he does the korban chatat, that's supposed to be below the red line. If he does it above the red line, no matter how he does it, in other words, whether he does it like a chatat or like an olah, whatever it is, it's going to be pasul. So we have three different ingredients that we're going to be looking at. The ma'aseh, that's the how he does the procedure, the intention, and the place above or below the line. And so we're going to look at all those combinations. So that was regarding a chatat ta'of. Now the other case. Olah ta'of sha'asa'ah lema'la kema'aseh olah l'shem olah keshera. If you have a bird that's designated to be a korban olah, and you do everything correctly in the right place above the line, and the procedure as is supposed to be for a korban olah, and you have intention also for korban olah, that's the ideal case. Fantastic. Keshera. Kema'aseh olah l'shem hatat keshera. If you did the action as an olah, but you had in mind it's a korban hatat, that's kosher. That also, all the way from the beginning of the masechet. Korban olah, let's say it's an animal, and you have in mind something else, that's still kosher. However, it will not fulfill the obligation of the owner. The owner, he obligated himself to bring a korban olah. Now he brings this animal, the kohen has in mind, I'm doing this as a hatat offering. Well, it's still a valid animal in that you can continue the procedure. However, it does not fulfill the obligation because he had wrong intention, and the owner will have to bring another one. Kema'aseh hatat l'shem olah, kema'aseh hatat l'shem hatat pesula. If he has this bird that's supposed to be an olah ta'of, and he does the action on it as if it's a hatat, even though the intention is okay, or if he makes a mistake in both, he treats it like a chatat and has an intention as a chatat, both of those cases, pesula. Asa lemata kemase kulan pesula. If he sprinkles it or squeezes the blood below the red line, no matter what other types of actions he does, it is pesula. In other words, even if the rest of the actions are in accordance with an olah, but it's the wrong place. So wrong place is also pesula. Gemara now will ask, Deshane b'mai. When you said that a hatat ta'of, that you did it kema'aseh olah, what exactly did you change? What did you do wrong? Ilema deshane b'melika, nema dela kerebi Elazar b'Rebi Shimon, damar shamati shemabdilin b'chatat ta'of. So let's say he changed in regarding the melika. We learned above that when you do melika for a korban chatat, then you leave the head attached. Although you sever one of the pipes, but the head is supposed to remain attached. Whereas for korban olah, you sever both of them and completely detach the head. So is that what we're talking about? It's a korban hatat, and he's supposed to leave it attached, and he makes it detached, and therefore it's pasul, our Mishnah says. Is that what he did wrong? Well, in that case, our Mishnah here, this Mishnah, would not be in accordance with Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, because we saw at the end of the previous perek, on the previous daf, that Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon says that he has a tradition that one may completely detach the head of a chatat off. So then it would be okay. Our Mishnah says it's pasul. So therefore, our Mishnah must not be the opinion of Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon. So now we ask about that. Wait a second. In the previous chapter, we already established that the Mishnah there, which is anonymous, this Mishnah also is anonymous, that Mishnah already said that the Mishnah cannot be like Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, because over there also it said that if one would take a korban hatat and take off the head completely, then it's no good. So that's already not like Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon. So therefore, actually, there's no problem saying that this Mishnah is continuing, this perek is continuing also against the opinion of Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon. So it's okay to say that. However, we would still rather not limit the Mishnah only to one opinion and exclude another opinion. So let's try. La deshane behaza'ah. We could explain our Mishnah here that when it says he takes a chatat off and treats it like an olah, that he's changing not in the milika, but rather in the haza'ah. The difference in haza'ah is that when it comes to a chatat off, there's two steps. After the milika, then first you sprinkle the blood, but you shake the bird, and by doing that, you sprinkle the blood onto the wall, and after that, a second step, then you squeeze the leftover of the blood directly onto the wall. That's for hatat. However, for olat ha'of, there's no sprinkling. It's only one step, it's only the squeezing. So here, that would be a case where it's supposed to be a chatat. So you're supposed to do two steps, sprinkling and squeezing, and instead he treats it like an olah and only does the squeezing. So why can't we explain our Mishnah like that? And then we could include it with Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon. We don't have to exclude him. Hachinami mistabera. And in fact, this would not only help in allowing Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon to be in agreement, but also it makes sense with a careful reading of this Mishnah in its continuation. Medikatani sefa asa lemala kemase kulan pesula. If you took a hatat offering and it's supposed to be below, and you did it above the red line, no matter how you treated it, it's pasul. Afilu kemase chatat l'shem hatat. Even though you did it properly as a hatat, and you had in mind it's a hatat, but you didn't put it in the right place. You put it above. Then it's no good. Now, deshane b'mai, ilema deshane b'milika, ha'amar mor milika b'chol makom b'mizbeach keshera. So what did you change here? What's the change that you did in the wrong place? Is it milika? If you say that, which we were trying to say above, that the change is you did the milika in the wrong place, but we have a tradition that milika can be done if milika is done anywhere on the mizbeach, it's kasher. So if the ma'aseh that we're talking about when it says that you did the ma'aseh this way or that way, is talking about milika, and then that means the place that you're talking about when it says you did it above or below, but it doesn't matter if you're standing higher or standing on the ground and you do milika is always going to be keshera. So then it wouldn't have the result of pesula, which the Mishnah says pasul. Ela lav deshane b'haza'ah u'medesefa b'haza'ah deshaname b'haza'ah. Rather, when it talks about the place, it must be talking about the squeezing of the blood. that you put the blood above the red line when it's supposed to be below the red line, and it's the wrong place, and therefore it's pasul. Since that particular is talking about the squeezing of the blood, then also it makes sense that the kema'aseh hatat that it's talking about, the ma'aseh that you do right in the wrong way, is also regarding the haza'ah. And so this is, isn't that a better explanation of this Mishnah? But we reject that. No, you can't compare these two clauses. Each one could be talking about a separate thing. When you're talking about the kema'aseh, the way that you do it, that could be talking about the milika. You have to do the milika this way, leave the head on, or take it off altogether. That clause is talking about milika. The clause that says where you do it, that's talking about haza'ah, where it's important, where you do it above on the wall or below the wall, above the red line or below the red line. And so it's very easy and smooth to read the Mishnah. They're talking about different laws. There is actually three different ingredients. One is the leshem, what intention there is. One is the ma'aseh, so the ma'aseh could be talking about melika. And then the place where you do it, that's talking about haza'ah. It's referring to three different ingredients, the things that are required, and so it's actually very smooth to read it. That's talking about three different things, and therefore there's no proof that you would have to, that it's better to read it behaza'ah. You could read it that way, but you can't prove that from the sefad that it should be so, and therefore you could read it that the Bi'elazar ben Rabbi Shimon is in accordance with him, if you still want to stick that as haza'ah, but you don't have to, and you can say that it's like the previous Mishnah, where that one was not like the Bi'elazar ben Rabbi Shimon, and so therefore it could be that this one also is not like the Bi'elazar ben Rabbi Shimon, if the change that it's talking about is with regard to the Melika. Now that we've established that the preferred reading of the first case in the Mishnah is that the change in procedure is talking about a change in milika. That was a hatat bird, and you treated it, you did milika as an olah. That was the case that of the first clause in the Mishnah. So now we move on to the next case in the Mishnah that says olah ta'of vechule. If you have a bird that's designated to be an olah, and you do the procedure as a hatat, then it is pasul. So we ask the same question here. Deshaneh b'mai. What kind of change did you make? Ilema deshaneh b'melika. Let's propose that he did the milika in the wrong way. It's an olah, so he's supposed to take off the head completely. But then he leaves it on partially. And so this would make sense if the first case was talking about a change in melika. This also should be talking about a change in melika. But let's see if this works. Midekatani sefa kulan en mitamiin bebet habili'ah umo'alin bahen nema dela k'Rabbi Yoshua di k'Rabbi Yoshua ha'amad en mo'alin. The problem will be with the continuation of the Mishnah, which is right over here. The Mishnah, will discuss it in depth when we get to this Mishnah. But basically, this V'chulan says all of the cases in the previous Mishnah, if you take that bird that was done in the wrong way, it will not cause tum'ah in bet habili'ah. We'll explain this when we get to the Mishnah. But here's the key, mo'alin ba. One does commit me'ilah. Now, when you commit me'ilah for a korban olah the whole time, from the time it's consecrated all the way through till the end, there's never a time when a korban olah can be used by people. And therefore, if one gets personal benefit from a korban olah, it's going to be me'ilah. That's for an olah. Not so for a korban hatat. Korban hatat, one would commit me'ilah from the time it's consecrated until the blood is put on the mizbeach. After that, the kohanim can eat the meat. If it's an animal, they can eat certain parts of the meat. If it's a bird, a korban hatat bird, they actually get the entire bird. None of the flesh is placed on the mizbeach. So therefore, it says in all these cases, mo'alin bahen, except for chatat ha'of she'asa lemata k'maseh chatat l'shem chatat. So if you have a korban bird that's a chatat, and you do everything properly as a chatat, then you will not commit me'ilah. Makes sense, because a korban hatat, once you sprinkle the blood, the kohanim are supposed to eat it. They're supposed to get benefit from it. And so therefore, there's no me'ilah. So that's the line here that it says, but otherwise, if you take a korban hatat and you treat it like a korban olah, then you would commit me'ilah. Okay, so let's say we're talking about a problem of milika. You did milika wrong, so this over here says you would get me'ilah. Okay, that's fine. The problem is with the continuation, this we're going to call the middle of the Mishnah. The previous Mishnah is going to call the Resha, this we're going to call the Mesiata, and then the next line we're going to call the Sefa. In the Sefa, we learned that actually there's a machloket here. And so what case is this machloket talking about is what we're going to have to figure out. Ola ta'of she'asa'a lemata k'ma'aseh hatat l'shem hatat. You have something that's supposed to be a bird that's a korban olah, and you did it below the line, and you treated it like a korban hatat, and you had in mind that it would be a hatat. Rabbi Eliezer omer mo'alim ba. Rabbi Eliezer says you commit me'ilah because it remains an olah. Since it was designated as an olah, it remains an olah, and therefore you commit me'ilah. It's pasul because you did all these things wrong, but it's pasul, so it's invalid. However, you also still commit me'ilah because it is still holy as me'ilah. It never loses its sanctification for someone to use. Rabbi Yoshua, however, says, "En mo'alin ba," because he thinks that, as we're going to see in the next Mishnah, as because you did everything as a hatat, the olah actually turns into a hatat, although it was designated to be a korban olah, but you did everything as you did it below the line, and l'shem hatat, and kemaseh hatat. So now it effectively turns into a hatat, and a hatat, once you sprinkle the blood, there is no more me'ilah. So according to the Rabbi Yoshua, it actually turns into a korban hatat. Since he says that, Rabbi Yoshua says that, well then, if we say that this clause here is talking about milika, well then, how come it says, U mo'alin ba? All these things, you do commit me'ilah, all the cases. But that's not true, that all the cases mo'alin ba, according to Rabbi Yoshua. Rabbi Yoshua says, in this case, en mo'alin ba. And so we have to reconcile how Rabbi Yoshua says en mo'alin ba over here, and yet this, which is anonymous, says mo'alin bahen, which includes all the cases that we've discussed above. And so now, coming back to explain this here, when the Mishnah said ola ta'of, you have a bird and you treated it like a korban hatat. So what do you mean that you treated it? You're saying you talked about you did the milika as a hatat. Yeah, but the Sefa, which means really the Mitziyata, the beginning of the Mishnah, says that all these things will en metamein bahen, but mo'alin bahen. So you commit me'ilah. Since it says you commit me'ilah, well then that would not be like Rabbi Yoshua, because Rabbi Yoshua says if you take a korban olah and you do melika, it's not clear from the Mishnah, but the discussion on Mishnah will make that clear. So Rabbi Yoshua says, if you take a bird that's an olah, and you do melika on it, and you do everything, melika, everything, you treat it like a korban hatat, then it becomes a korban hatat, and mo'alin with it. So how could the beginning of the next Mishnah say that you get me'ilah for everything? So that would only be according to Rabbi Eliezer, not according to Rabbi Yoshua. So we'd rather not have to say that this part of the Mishnah is only the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer and not the opinion of Rabbi Yoshua. So that would be a difficult reading. So let's try a different reading. Rather, our Mishnah above is when it says this is a bird that's an olah, and you treated it, you did the ceremony as a chatat. We're talking about the sprinkling that you did, sprinkling and then squeezing in 2 steps, but it's an olah, therefore you should only do 1 step. That's what you did wrong, and that is pasul. Okay, so let's see, is that a good reading? Let's try it. Ema sefa, let's say the sefa, which is the next part in the next Mishnah, the part that has the machloket. Now we're going to quote it. Ola ta'ov she'asa'a lemata k'maseh hatat l'shem hatat. Rabbi Eliezer omer mo'alin ba. Rabbi Yoshua omer en mo'alin ba. You have a bird that's supposed to be a korban olah, and you did everything as a hatat. You did it below the line as a hatat. You treat it like a hatat, whatever, we'll see what this means. And you had in mind a hatat. Rabbi Eliezer says, you still commit me'ilah, meaning it remains sanctified as an olah. although it's invalid, it's still in olah, invalid olah. And therefore, me'ilah still applies. Rabbi Yoshua says, no, it turns into a korban hatat. And therefore, there's no me'ilah. So, deshane b'mai. When it says here, it's k'maseh hatat, what did you change? Ilema b'misui, emar de'amar Rabbi Yoshua, deshane b'melika, b'misui, mi amar. If you say that the only change he made was with the squeezing, and not the milika, that the milika he did still as a korban olah, but do you think that Rabbi Yoshua said that Rabbi Yoshua only said that it becomes a korban hatat if he made a change in milika? He has to do everything. This is a korban olah. He has to do everything, including the milika, as a chatat. Only then is it treated as a chatat and mo'alin. If you did the milika like an olah and only the mitsui you did as a chatat, would Rabbi Yoshua say that it's not en mo'alin? No, he would not say that. So rather, ve'ela be'milika. Therefore, this part of the Mishnah, next Mishnah, has to be talking about a change in milika. What we end up seeing is resha v'sefa be'milika u'mesiata be'mitsui. Resha means our Mishnah, the previous Mishnah. Sefa means this section of the machloket. That would be be'milika. And then this, if we want it to be according to everyone, because if you want to be Rabbi Yoshua also, and here it says mo'alin bahen, well, Rabbi Yoshua would only say mo'alin bahen if the change was to the mitsui only, and no change for the milika. So that's the only way you could say that this would be unanimous. So that means that what comes before this and after this is milika, but this, when it says that there you changed, that's the v'chulam, and any change, this is talking about a change in the mitsui. So does that make sense that we should read it? Resha and sefa milika in the middle is mitsui? And we answer, yes, in Resha v'sefa milika mesiata b'mitsui. Sometimes it happens that the Mishnah assumes one case or another, even though it uses similar phraseology, but it could be referring to different types of changes. And if you want this to be according to everyone, then that's how you will explain it. And the next daf will fully explain this Mishnah. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.